Welcome to the Jedi Ranger. I'm JohnBerry555, and I'm continuing my reviews of Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 3 with Episode 6, The Sehlat Who Ate Its Tail. So, this episode, we get to see some of the USS Farragut and, Commander Kirk. He's not quite a captain yet, though he does become acting captain because Captain Varel of the Farragut gets injured and is transported to the Enterprise for surgery because it can't be performed on the Farragut because their CMO is dead or injured, and Chopper is not qualified to actually do the surgery. So Varel's out of the picture, and this episode is really showing us Kirk learning to be in command. And the pressure does get to him, and though a nice chat from Spock helps him out. It actually does basically, it's the same dynamic that we will, I think, ultimately see in the original series, where Spock basically provides the cool, emotionless perspective that Kirk needs to command. And that's actually very much, this is more about the original series, but in the original series, Spock and Bones were Kirk's two closest confidants. The cool, emotionless, calculating, for lack of a better term, perspective, the analytical, the logical, and the emotional. The two parts of himself in very much a way. There's also a scene where basically you can get a sense of some of the banter that they do develop as they go along, as they actually become friends, like friends and colleagues on the same ship, but we're not there yet. But essentially, the premise of the episode is that there's a scavenger ship that's just taking stuff, and it basically has taken the Enterprise, so the disabled Farragut needs to figure out what they're going to do, and Kirk has to figure it out while also figuring out to command. And the scavenger ship is dubbed the Destroyer of Worlds, given how it just destroys and takes what it needs. And so, while Kirk is figuring out command and all that, Scotty somehow has to fix the Farragut, even though it's almost impossible. Chopper is basically in charge of medical now. Spock is there doing Spock stuff, and also Uhura is there figuring out communications and providing assistance. Because the Farragut pretty much has a scouting crew, and the Enterprise is a away team, except for Long, because she went back to the Enterprise with all the people they beamed off for medical treatment, is still operating on very much of a scouting crew. They do save the day basically by figuring out, that scavenger, it wants this, so we're going to give it to him, and then we're going to, or it I should say, and then poison it, and that gives the Enterprise a chance to escape. Once Pike and Laan disable the connection that the scavenger has to the Enterprise. They also, doing that, have to face two of the aliens, and there comes a moment where Pike's visor, because they're wearing environmental suits, is knocked off, and the alien stops attacking. It's confused. I'm like, it saw his face. So my first thought is, it now sees him as a sentient being, but we learn a bit more later on, and I'm going to spoil that. But they do eventually get the Enterprise out, and then the Farragut fires some torpedoes at a Klingon ship that was in the scavenger, already disabled, and it blows it up, and then they detect life signs. Human life signs. And unfortunately, the Farragut's transporters aren't working, so they couldn't even beam them aboard. And who knows about the Enterprise? I don't think the Enterprise was able to as well. But they figure it out. They find the core of the ship, which is an old Earth spaceship. Specifically, an Earth spaceship with the U.S. flag on it and the symbol of the United States Space Probe Agency, right? The United Earth Space Probe Agency, which we got reference of in the original series, which I really love that they're referencing the United Earth Space Probe Agency, but also it's still like around in Starfleet at the same time, so crazy stuff going on there. But that is very much an interesting little detail. So, and apparently they find the historical record that there was a ship of basically a bunch of of Earth's best that survived the Third World War. They got what they could from the remaining space agencies, put it all together, and left because they saw Earth was beyond saving. And over the time, their descendants, something happened. They leave it very much open-ended about what went wrong, what happened to them. Well, I can probably tell you what happened. Things went bad. They had to survive. And ultimately, that's what I think it was. And I think that's why that one of the aliens, or I should say humans now, stopped when they saw Pike's face because they realized, these are humans. And probably which is kind of interesting, like you think they would have come across humans by now before. They've at least faced Klingons and those stories of them going around. So that is something I kind of just want to convey, that I do find that kind of interesting. But they also, called this scavenger ship Destroyer of Worlds, which, different names, all that from different languages, but the effective translation is Destroyer of Worlds. But as we learn that this ship ultimately started out after Earth's Third World War, a nuclear war as the canon has loosely established. Not loosely, pretty solidly established. But if you remember, with the Second World War, I believe it was Oppenheimer, quoted a section of Hebrew scripture about we have become death, destroyer of worlds. I'm wondering if it's somehow trying to also make a reference to that. Best of intentions, but that's what you become. I don't know, it's just a thought I had. I could be wrong. But it definitely poses a very interesting question, and I think is very much in line with almost a classic Star Trek episode. No, you could talk about what was the episode in TNG? The Royale? Sure, you could talk about that a little bit. You can also think of Vija from the motion picture. In that case, this is actually probably the closest thing in terms of what happened to the original thing. It lost sense of its original purpose somehow. We don't know what. There's also the possibility, too, that we could even connect this to some of the other, lost colonies in terms of storylines in that. But even in the original series, you had the Omega Glory, which, again, loosely ideas similar, Earth ideas infecting other planets because it's not properly understood. I don't know, I'm just spitballing here. But it's a very interesting episode, and there's this prevalence of basically scavengers who are scavenging wherever they can to survive with no regard for anything else. But one of them, seeing another human, it gives a sense of pause. I do wonder, did that one survive and they could ask him? I think they want to establish that he died, but that is a valid question. Honestly, the biggest thing is we don't know if the Enterprise could have saved some of those lives. We don't know. But one thing that's very neat is that the suit that the scavenging humans are wearing is shown visually to be extremely similar to the suits that we see in the photo of those scientists and astronauts from the past, which I think is a very clever idea to paint that connection between them. Again, very interesting episode and some pretty thought-provoking ideas about what happens when humans go to space. Basically, it's being shown as a warning that, hey, if you lose sight of maybe why you're out here, you could become exactly what they became. That's, I think, ultimately what they wanted to convey, but they didn't quite convey that. They conveyed it more like a, basically, what happened to them? It can't happen to us. And that, I wish kind of they'd done, just one person, could that eventually happen to us? Could that have happened to Voyager even, too? That's another idea, because Voyager was cut off in a hostile section of the galaxy. I don't know. But those are just my thoughts. I would love to hear yours in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching my video. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please be sure to give this video a like and share. Also, consider subscribing to my channel to stay up to date on all my latest content. In the meantime, thank you for watching, and as always, have a good day, a good night, wherever you are. May the Force be with you always.